You guys, there's something very sinister going on here that I haven't been honest about. It's that I had sardines for lunch, and while I appreciate that you're not here to smell me through the screen, I want you to know that despite the incredible omega-3 benefits, the vitamins, the protein, lean protein that it offers, the quick snackable element of it, just put it on your pasta, which I did. You reek. You smell like fish for hours afterwards. You can brush your teeth. You can drink water, and it doesn't help. So I just want you to know that that's what's really going on here that you don't know about. But with that said, welcome back, and thank you so much for being here. And today we are going to talk about choosing yourself, what it means to truly choose yourself, and how there are many relationships and checkpoints in our life that test us to see if this time we're finally going to break out of the pattern of people pleasing, of abandoning ourselves, abandoning our voice, abandoning our true needs, our desires. So let's just get right to it. There are different scenarios that you can identify as testing you in very specific things. So relationships test us to see if we'll abandon our standards in order to keep that love around in favor of not losing what we already have, thinking that it's the best we're going to get. It's testing us to see, are we going to settle for this? Do we feel like we're good enough? Friendships test us to see if we'll abandon our true voice, our true self, in order to not come across as too much. Jobs and career test us to see if we'll abandon our true purpose, our passions, in favor of the illusion of safety and security, a stable paycheck. Family tests us to see if we'll abandon our boundaries to just keep the peace, to keep things as they are, keep the status quo, to not want to create a rift, to offend anybody. So every relationship, every major life event test is a strong word, but let's say it's an opportunity to this time make a different choice. Again, that if we have the deeply ingrained pattern of abandoning ourselves, of people pleasing, of having learned in our nervous system that in order to have safety in our life, then we have to fawn and keep things pleasant, then it's an opportunity to make a different choice, to finally speak up, to finally step into the version of ourselves that advocates for our needs, that takes care of us. So a good way to look at it is that those traits that keep us small, victimized, unsure, in fight or flight, not able to use our voice, that comes from a wounded inner child, from a version of us that is still stuck inside, deep in our body, maybe around the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, where events happened that were scary for us and that we learned these maladaptive coping mechanisms in order to cope with what was going on around us, the instability, the things that were scary. So we became, overly agreeable, overly nice, blah, 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 blah. And then to overcome that, to step into that new version of ourselves, we then want to become our own inner loving parent. That those parts of ourselves, they don't necessarily go away, but then we become the force that says, I will speak on your behalf, that I will take care of you, so that we can hold all these different elements of who we are inside of us. Because again, it doesn't work to say like, I'm just going to overcome this and never feel that again. But it's that you might still feel that activation of an old pattern, of an old habit. You might still feel elements of an old identity. But the key is to, again, become the source of safety and security to those parts of yourselves, to bring them along for the ride. So this is not easy stuff though. And like I am still struggling with this to this day, but getting much better, more practiced. That's the key. It is practice. And that when we have things that come up in our life, if it's an issue with family, an issue with friends, with relationship, with your career, if you feel like things are really challenging you, that's a good thing. That these opportunities come up for us to reevaluate the patterns that are no longer serving us, that are time to be let go of. So again, it's a blessing. These are no accident that these scenarios are coming up. I have gotten really good at disappointing my family. I've gotten really good at holding boundaries with my family and not needing to keep the peace. Okay. Choosing violence at times. Just kidding. I'm not choosing violence, but I'm not keeping the peace either. Okay. That if my family is disappointed that I don't want to come to Passover dinner, they can throw a fit. They can be disappointed and upset and try to convince me to come, and I'm just not going to do it. And I don't have to be mean about it, but I'm just firm and say, I don't want to go. I don't feel comfortable around those people. It's just not who I am anymore. Okay. We don't need to follow this programming that we've been given to be the good one, the nice one. Okay. You don't have to be a bitch about it. But friendships are another layer. It's a whole other subject. Again, it's like, are you willing to abandon yourself, abandon your true voice, abandon your standards, abandon what's important to you to keep the peace with friendships? That's a new one for me. It's like, oh my God, I'm going through these scenarios where I'm having a hard time with disappointing friends. I don't want to be flaky. I don't want to be the one that's always canceling, but I'm having to become that friend. And I'm trying to change this programming that like loops in my mind of, well, if you keep canceling on your friends when you said you would do this, you're a bad friend. You're flaky. You can't change your mind once you say yes to something. You can change your mind, but that's not easy to just realize when you've been living unconscious programming, the voice of what other people have said to you. Obviously, you want to be considerate of other people. You want to be honest with them. Doesn't mean lie to them. But it means that if there's something that's not working for you, if you don't feel like you want to get together for this thing, you owe it to yourself to not abandon yourself this time in favor of keeping the peace with that relationship. Because it's always a toss-up. Are you going to abandon the friend, or are you going to abandon yourself? It really does come down to that. And if we keep abandoning ourselves, if we keep abandoning our true voice, what our heart is telling us that it wants to do or what it doesn't want to do, if we keep doing that, then we are fragmenting the trust that we have with ourselves. That if something is important to us, if something is on our heart, and we don't listen to it ever, then we are creating this discord within us that feels like anxiety, it feels like depression, because we're not trusting ourselves, we're not listening to our inner voice, right? We're prioritizing the opinions, the voices of other people. So what this work does is it strengthens our relationship with ourselves. This is why if you have a good mentor, a good coach, a good podcaster, they'll never tell you what to do. The answer is always within you. But what you want is to get that support on how to make the decisions that are in line with your true self, with your heart, with your intuition, how to rebuild that relationship with yourself so that then you feel confident to make decisions that prioritize your well-being, that prioritize what your heart wants instead of what the expectations are of other people, instead of being tied to obligations of other people. Even with romance, that is a huge one of settling for something that you think is as good as it's going to get, or staying in something that you feel like you have to abandon your standards for because you feel like, well, this is as good as I'm going to get. There's probably no one else better out there for me. This is as good as I think I deserve. Romance really tests us. And I can tell you in my past, whenever I abandoned myself, whenever I abandoned my voice, my true desires, whenever I melded myself into what I thought the other person wanted so that I wouldn't be abandoned, it was never worth it. Because in that process, you lose yourself. You start to be disconnected from who you really are, from what you really like, from what you really need to say. So again, it's widening the gap from you and you, from your personality self and from your true self, your heart, your soul. And what we're wanting to do is that when we are faced with the divergence of two paths, picking abandoning ourselves or potentially abandoning them or abandoning our old programming, we want to practice not abandoning ourselves. We want to practice choosing ourselves each and every time. And it is a practice because, again, when we're rewriting these programs, when we're reconditioning our beliefs about who we are, our beliefs about who other people are and our relationship to them, our obligations to them, the power that we think they hold over us, right? it takes time, it takes practice, it takes these situations coming up again, and rather than going back into default mode and just reacting out of what scares us, of what feels scary, and thinking, oh, well, I better just do what I'm told, stepping out of that unconscious programming and saying, I do have choice here. This is an opportunity to make a different decision for myself, to reconnect with myself, to take one step closer to be fully in line with my heart, with my true desires, to rebuild that rapport that I have with myself. Your career is a major place where we abandon our true desires, our true passion, and what we want to be doing in life, thinking that, well, maybe we're not good enough. Maybe this job that I'm going after is as good as it's going to get. And then you settle for a life that feels mediocre to you, that's just good enough to get by. But you've shelved the thing that you really always wanted to do, that really lit you up, because you chose safety. You chose the consistent paycheck. But newsflash that we're all seeing is that's always an illusion. If you work at a company doing a 9-to-5 job, they can fire you at any moment and they have no remorse. You're just a number, okay? So we don't want to go through our entire lives abandoning ourselves, our true desires and passions for the illusion of security, just to be fired years later, like we were just a number that entire time. There's no such thing as having a family at work, okay? We're employees. We're getting paid to be here. So that is another ultimate test, is are we willing to go out on a limb, to choose ourselves, to express ourselves, to risk it all, to make a life that we're excited to wake up for, to do something that ignites us, that helps other people. The other big piece of this is your voice. Where are you abandoning your voice? Speaking up, speaking your truth, showing your real emotions, expressing yourself. There are studies done, I don't know where they are, but I've heard about this, where women, particularly women, because they more commonly than men have a hard time with this, who don't speak up, who don't express their anger, get autoimmune disorders, because that anger that should be pushed out and projected outwards is turned inwards, and you start to attack yourself. That's what the definition of an autoimmune disease is. It's when the body starts to attack itself. The immune system starts to attack the cells in your body, thinking that they are foreign. So that, again, that energy that should have gone out, that healthy anger, we're not talking about like rage and abuse, but we're talking about expressing your real emotions in a healthy, safe way that should be expressed outwards, doesn't. It gets blocked up and you turn on yourself. It goes inwards. So it's either, are you going to be quiet and abandon your voice and get an autoimmune disorder? Or are you going to be a little bit of a bitch and express yourself and be real and express healthy anger and allow that to be the expression, to allow it to be released? We don't want to be sacrificing our health, sacrificing our vitality, sacrificing our gorgeous good looks, our hairline, our skin, our digestion, just to keep the peace with somebody else or with some other thing. It's never worth it, because then you'll get to the end of your life realizing that you are truly broke. That even if you had a good paycheck and you saved a lot of money, you're spiritually broke. That you don't know who you are. You don't know what you've done for the last 3 decades because it was never from your true self, that you've lived on autopilot, realizing that you've settled in every regard to your life, in relationships, friendships, where you live, in your career, and you feel bankrupt, spiritually, emotionally, morally bankrupt. But we don't need to get to that place. So you need to be honest. You need to be real. You need to be choosing yourself each and every time. And you need to see that these major moments of our life where we make decisions around our career, our romantic partnerships, our friendships, our family, those are opportunities to make a different decision where we don't abandon ourselves anymore. And we finally choose ourselves. We finally express ourselves. We finally lay down boundaries and say, this is not how I want to live my life anymore. In order to love myself, in order to be authentic, this is what I need to share. This is what decision I need to make. That may disappoint other people. That may have to reject other people or involve me getting rejected. It may alter the trajectory of my life. And even if it may not look positive at first, if you have to break up with that person or distance yourself from family members or quit that job and have to fall back on your savings for a little bit, even if you go through that dip, you will always come back up again because you're being true to yourself. You're making decisions that come from your heart and you are following the path that can only be discovered if you start to walk on it. You cannot get stuck in your head thinking that if only I think about this a little bit longer, if only I mentally plan this through a little bit longer, it'll make itself known to you. But you have to start becoming this person. In order to start living a different life, you have to make different decisions for yourself. So that is not going to be easy at first, but it will always be worth it. T. Okay. Love you guys. I'm going to leave you on this note, and I will see you again next week. Okay, bye.